Testing. One, two, three. Testing. Hey Laura, welcome to the stream. How's the audio and the sound and video? Good. Thank you so much. All right. I want to broach the subject. Hey, 54 Punchy, welcome to the stream. Hey, Jamie McDonald, welcome to the stream. Um, I want to start today on the subject of research, and we're doing this in the sense of teaching new hobbyists, new fish keepers, how to do research on their tanks and the inhabitants of their tanks. Hey Joseph, welcome to the stream, man. Glad to see you guys all here. Research is a subject that is near and dear to my heart. I think that it is one of the most critical things that new hobbyists should do. I think that it is one of the most important ways that they will be able to begin to understand what's actually going on in their tanks. I think it's one of the most critical ways that they will begin to understand what kind of fish will work together in the same tank. I mean, we all know that as hobbyists, when we first got our fish tanks, we all tried to go out and buy all of the different fish that we liked and put them in one tank because we only had one tank. And we were smitten with all these new different kinds of fish. And so we bought all these different kinds of fish without doing any research on them. And we put them all in a quote, quote, community tank. And then we started trying to keep them alive. Kaler's Aquatic says, hey Dwayne, happy last day before daylight savings times begins. Thanks for the reminder, Kaler, and welcome to the stream. I think that there are several areas that we as fish keepers must, and new fish keepers must do, several areas that need to be covered. And one of them is probably just basic husbandry, the basics of keeping fish alive in tanks. And there are any number of places for a new fish keeper to go to begin to do the research required. If you develop a love for catfish, then I would suggest to you that online there are several excellent places to learn about catfish alone. You can go to Planet Catfish, and eventually I will come up with a list of different links to all of these differing places that one can find online. Excuse me, I got a frog in my throat. There are any number of different kinds of research places that are available on the web alone for fish keepers to look at. There are going to be lots of different forums. There are going to be lots of different just databases of information. Planet Catfish would be an excellent place for a new fish keeper to start. to begin to read um, other fish keepers' experience with this fish, other fish keepers' ability. Hey, V Stag, welcome to the stream. Other fish keepers' ability to breed these fish. And you can do this with a Fish Tropics. Welcome to the stream, man. You can do this with almost every different kind of fish that you can think of to keep out there. There are rainbow forums, there are rainbow databases, there are live bearer forums, there are live bearer databases out there that are specifically devoted to each kind and differing kind of fish. Good to see you too, Fish Tropics. Um, I'm using catfish as just a slight way to broach this topic because it's one that's near and dear to my heart. I love to keep catfish. And so I have a lot of experience with the differing kinds of forums. There are two really important catfish forums out there, and Planet Catfish is the one that I prefer, but there is also another, and you will notice when you go to Planet Catfish that there are links to the other catfish forum as well. So when you begin researching the type of fish that you want to buy, and that's my best advice to a new fish keeper, spot the fish in the store. If you can't wait, if you're just bound and determined to get that fish, put a down payment on that fish and have the store hold it for you. Then go home, do your research, see what is required to keep that fish thriving. And then once you've either figured out a tank to put that fish in, go back to the fish store and get the fish. Or if you can't place it in any of your multiple tanks, then you need to set up a tank. And my best advice is that that tank needs to run for about 30 days before that fish will be able to be placed in that tank. Now, it is possible, we all know that there are instant ways to set up the bacteria cycle in a tank, and it is possible that you could do it in a couple of weeks, but my best advice is a month. And the way you know that your tank is mature is by watching algae form on the walls of and the decorations of a tank. And you will first go through brown algae, which looks very much brown. It's something that autocinclists love to eat. It's something that plecos love to eat. But when that brown algae forms, you know that your lighting and the quality of the biotope that you've gotten set up is beginning to mature. AHC Aqua, welcome to the stream, man. And then when that brown algae begins to turn into green algae, when green algae begins to take over from the brown algae, you know that your tank has reached maturity, and there's a really good chance that that tank is ready for a fish. Now, that's just anecdotal information from me. It's just my experience that I've gone through over and over and over again with tanks. And it's just a way to decipher whether that tank is ready to keep a fish. But I'm digressing a little bit here. What we're trying to do, hey, the fish loft, welcome to the stream. what I'm trying to do here is to offer new aquarists. Hey, Terry's Tropical Tanks, welcome to the stream. New fish aquarists a way to begin to learn how to research their tanks, the husbandry of fish, and the fish themselves. Um, Research is something that you can use on the water, on the substrate, on the plants, on the scientific cycles that are occurring in your tank, the, the bacteria, the nitrogen cycle. All of these different cycles are going on in your tank. The cycle between soft and hard water, the cycle between pH high, pH low, pH neutral. And all of these are areas where you, as a new aquarist, need to have information out there for you to use. And there are a lot of different places on the internet that have great information for new aquarists to begin to start absorbing it. Now, there are magazines. Hey, Cobweb Caverns, welcome to the stream, man. There are magazines that have web presences. You can find Tropical Fish Hobbyist uh, online, where each month the magazine will come to you in digital format, and you can go through the entire magazine page by page. You can uh, zoom in on pictures. You can zoom in on text. You can zoom in on advertisements. And you can read the magazine. Now, a monthly periodical or a bi-monthly periodical like Tropical Fish Hobbyist is not usually going to have yeah, Joseph, I love them too. I keep telling myself I need to change this, but I haven't been able to change it yet. There's nothing that I have in my data banks that gives quite the information that these pictures do. Terry's Tropical Tanks says, I learned a ton from Tropical Fish Hobbyists long before the internet. And yes, many of us are old enough to have been doing fish keeping before there was such a thing as the internet. And because of that, we are used to hard copies. And there are any number of magazines going all the way back into the 1800s that were devoted to fish keeping. And while if you get a magazine from the early 1900s about fish keeping, the information in that magazine is going to be highly outdated, but it doesn't mean that there won't be useful information in that magazine. And to that end, yes, Terry's Tropical Tanks brings up Amazonas. I'm also subscribed to Amazonas and Tropical Fish Hobbyist. Both of those are incredible resources. Now, what I was going to say a minute ago was that those magazines, periodicals, will focus in more tightly on maybe a fish that you're not really interested in. It might be a different kind of catfish, but it might come from exactly the same place in the wild that your fish. Yep, Joseph is adding another link, and please, people, add as many links as you can to places that have research going on that new fish hobbyists probably should look at. And anyone that is a new fish hobbyist that is in this stream, I would highly recommend that you click on any of these people, especially those with the wrench, but any of the people that are in this stream posting in the chat please click on them and go visit their channels and look at what they're producing and watch them on the internet and listen to what they have to say. Um, Most of the people that hang here or have been given wrenches are really decent people. I know many of them personally, have met them live, and I understand and recognize them as valuable people in the hobby and valuable people that you as a new hobbyist should get to know and follow and watch and listen to. Okay, Tropical Fish Hobbyist will come out each month with a series of articles, and sometimes those articles are, a lot of them are based in a generalized area, live bearers, saltwater fish, um, catfish, loricards. Sometimes the issues of these periodical magazines will be, yes, it is, Terry, will be focused on a single um, item, a single type of fish, or a single type of fish keeping, and and while in some cases the information may not be exactly what a new fish keeper needs, it may contain a great deal of information that is transferable, that allows a new fish keeper to um, use the information that is given for a certain habitat or a certain locale in their research on a differing fish that's not covered in the actual articles, but that comes from a very similar area or comes from the exact area. And as a fish keeper, as you go along, you will begin to realize that even topics that you think are completely outside of your interest are very germane to your interest, and that you can transfer information from one type of article to the subject that you are currently researching, and you begin to learn how to do that by the process of having done more and more and more and more research. A little tidbit about a breeding of a certain kind of fish could very well be exactly the tidbit of information you need to learn how to breed the fish that you are trying to breed. It may not transfer exactly. It may be a situation where the information given that in the article the writer was able to breed this fish by doing X, Y, and Z. Well, maybe only X and Z will transfer to what you're doing, but just having that X and Z may be the difference between breeding that fish or not breeding that fish, keeping that fish alive or allowing that fish to thrive. And so even articles that are not written exactly in the area you are looking for can be very valuable. Now, um, most periodicals um, will contain sections that are continuous, that come out every month, and maybe on plants, maybe on larger cichlid species, maybe on larger um, live bearers or smaller live bearers. Hey, Lumpy Dog, welcome to the stream, man. Um, so, so far we've given 3 examples of place on the internet where people can get really good, solid information. And in this instance, it's Amazonas Magazine online, Tropical Fish Hobbyist online, and both of those are paid subscriptions. So understand that a certain amount of your fish keeping budget should probably be spent on research, and that's something that a lot of new fish keepers are not aware of. They just think they're going to get the fish and stick it in a tank and it's going to do fine for them. They don't understand that they need to do research on that fish. They may need to do research on how to help that fish thrive. And these are areas where we're talking about. In this example, I'm doing catfish, and Amazonas Magazine and Tropical Fish Hobbyist are excellent online places. You do have to pay for those subscriptions, but it's not that much. It's not as expensive as going out and buying the hard copies of the magazines, which I also recommend. And I used Planet Catfish as a um, suggestion. All of these places are places where there is some peer review going on, especially in the magazines, the ones you pay for. You're going to find excellent information. It will have been checked and rechecked. Whereas on the general web, you're going to find anecdotal information that has probably not been peer reviewed, although many people out there on the internet will peer review even little forums where stuff is being discussed. There's usually one or two people that have enough experience to say, hey, wait a minute, you're giving bad advice there. That's probably not helpful for some people because of X, Y, and Z. So always, when you are on the general internet, when you are on some forum that's disconnected from heavy peer review, you need to be aware that the information that you're reading may be just something that worked for one person at one time because of their setup at the time, and it may not transfer to you. You may not get the same results out of it that they did, or their Terry says that he just caught 16 rasbors out of one of his show tanks and that he only bought 10. That's always a good sign, Terry. One of my favorite research resources, one of the most powerful arrows in my fish keeping quiver is books. And as many of you know that have followed my channel for a while, I've done many book reviews where I took particular books that I felt like were really critical, that belong in Fish Keeper's arsenal, and have reviewed them and spoken about them, where I've taken books that I didn't really like that much and talked about why I really didn't like them that much. I would highly recommend that people that are new to this hobby look at my book reviews. You'll find them in a video group together, or you can just search through my videos and find them one by one. Books are hard copy information. Books are continuously in your possession, as long as your house doesn't burn down and they burn down with it. You will have that book for the rest of your life, as long as you take care of it. It is information at your fingertips. And And I am a strong, strong supporter of information at your fingertips, whether the power's on or not, because it is my personal experience, and this may not be your personal experience as you go along in the hobby, but I have found it to be true that as I read a book for the first time, I absorb so much information out of that book. But if I go back and read that book even 2 years later, I suddenly discover that I absorb a whole different range of information from that book. Suddenly, my experience in the fish keeping hobby and the situations that I've been through suddenly open up new areas of understanding the same information that I read 10 or 20 years before and got a great deal of information out of. Suddenly my experience in that area allows me to understand that much more, and that light comes on in my head and I say, oh, this is why they said this. Because I have been through some experience with the exact same situation and thought, why is that happening? Or why did I get this outcome from that? And then I go back and I read that same information over again, and suddenly the light goes on and I recognize what the full value of that information was, even though I read it. Fish Tropics says that they're sitting on his table to read. And Cobweb Cavern says, can't beat a good aquarium book. Make a cup of tea, sit down and read to yourself into being a better fish keeper.
Can I butt in for a second?
Yes.
I don't know if they can see me, but I'd like to point out, as a research scientist myself, that there are two kinds of research, and the kind of research that Dwain is talking about is library research, where you go and you look up information. There's a whole other world of research, which we call experiential research, in which you set up an experiment or you set up an observation, and then you write down what you find out from doing that. And that's experiential research. So at some point, I'd like to talk to you about experiential research and how to do it. But in the meantime, what Dwain is telling you about library research is very good and very important. That's all.
For those of you that don't know, that's my wife Elaine, and she's the smarter of the two of us, so I'd highly recommend that you listen to what she says. Joseph is doing a 2-hour microscope session live for Real Nerds on Monday night. Joseph, I don't know if the Pacers are playing that night. I hope they're not now, so that I can be at the 2-hour microscope session. I have owned several microscopes in the past. I have found microscopes to be very handy and to also be not very handy, because when you get down on the microscopic level, hey, down the wormhole, welcome to the stream. Pam, thanks for dropping by. I hope you have a good rest of your work day. Microscopes are an incredibly valuable way to get to the bottom of serious issues, one of the books that I keep at hand, let's see if I can get this book off without making a huge mess here. I'm probably going to make the huge mess. This is a book that stays at my right hand all of the time, and it's a book that I have talked about many different times and have done a review of, and I will go full screen to talk about this book, The Handbook of Fish Diseases by Untergasser. This is an older book. If I remember correctly, it's like the 70s. '89. But as you'll notice, this book has a microscope on the cover of the book. It is a very deep research, library research, as my wife says, book. And if you follow through this book is flowcharts. You take a disease that you see or that you are experiencing in a tank, and you will follow the flowchart, yay or nay, depending on what the information you perceive in front of you is. Chart 21A, bacteria. You have found bacteria in a smear or squash mount. Now with water, prepare an extremely dilute mount and examine at 400 to 800 times magnification. Dark field or phase contrast is very helpful. In contrast to other organisms, bacteria are not identified merely by size and appearance. Costly methods are necessary to identify them. Cultures must be seeded and the growth of colonies observed on various kinds of culture media. Then the cultured bacteria can be classified according to their metabolic characteristics. The culture of bacteria is not harmless. So for this reason, it should be carried out only by trained specialists in specially equipped laboratories. In that respect, then, this chart is not an actual diagnostic chart, but rather an aid in deciding on the best selection of medication. That is, precise diagnosis is not always necessary before treatment. And the flow chart on just this page is the bacteria move on their own. If the answer is yes, are they gram negative? If the answer is yes, do they move fast in a living mount? If the answer is yes, do they come from an organ that has hemorrhages or from the intestine? If the answer is no, did you remove the bacteria from rotting fins or from skin? If the answer is yes, probably bacteria of the genus Vibrio are involved. See Chapter 4.5, treat according to methods A5, A6, and A1. In the first section, if the answer was yes, are they 1.2 to 2U long and 0.4 to 0.6 wide? No. If the answer is no, do they move moderately fast? If the answer is yes, are they 1 to 2U long and 0.5 to 1U wide? If the answer is yes, do the fish have any symptoms of abdominal dropsy? If the answer is yes, the fish is probably infected with bacteria of the genus Aeromonas. See Chapter 4.4, treat according to method A3. If the answer was no, were they taken from rotting fins or the skin? If the answer was no earlier, are they 0.8 to 2.5U long and 0.3 to 0.08U wide? If the answer is yes, was the bacteria taken from lesions or bleeding organs or rotting fins? If the answer is yes, the cause is presumably bacteria of the Pseudomonas treat according to methods A5, A6, or A1. My point is that while microscopes are incredibly valuable tools for this kind of research into diseases of fish, and this book is incredibly valuable if you have a microscope and you have the scientific will to learn and understand deeply enough, if you are invested highly enough in the health of your fish to really get to the bottom of what is causing your fish's problem, a microscope and a book like this are incredibly valuable. And while you can use this book for research, it's not really a book for research because basically you're already in a situation where your fish are dying and you want to know why, or you're afraid your fish are going to die and you want to know why. So, hey Mob Guppy, welcome to the stream. Oh, Pam was talking about Monday. Um, Joseph says I have dark field and oil immersion with a 5 megapixel camera connected to my computer. That's awesome, Joseph. I spent some time looking at Lucas's microscope when we went and visited Lucas's um, fish room, and man was I jealous. That being able to transfer what you've got on your screen on the microscope to your computer screen and being able to blow it up and really look at what you're seeing. Anybody that's interested and wants to understand both the value and the non-value of a microscope in the fish keeping hobby needs to go look at the Fish Vet's new video about Microbacterium marinum. I had an experience with this disease. It is very pernicious. You will find my video about this disease under, oh gosh, what did I name it? Destroyer of all worlds, I think is what I called it. There's a quote from literature about that, and it seemed very apropos to me. Microbacterium marinum will wipe out your tank. If you transfer it to other tanks, it will wipe those tanks out too. It is a very pernicious disease. Hey, Valleyfish, welcome to the stream. It is something that you need to, as a hobbyist, understand is part of the dark side, as I call it, of our hobby. There are certain diseases, there are certain affectations of our hobby, and I'll wait till some other time to get into some of those. But there are things out there in this hobby that will bring you to an abrupt halt. You will suddenly understand the science doesn't meet the seriousness of the situation, and this is also a disease that can be transferred to humans. Microbacteria are a very dangerous part of our hobby in the sense that they can be transferred to human beings. Now, most of them are not transferable, but many are. You need an electron microscope to really, really closely identify it. But the fish vet, Dr. Lowe, the fish vet, who is someone I recommend that any fish hobbyist follow and watch closely his videos, because this guy is an actual vet, has gone to college for being a vet. He's an actual vet, and he does exactly what we as hobbyists need to know how to do. He explains the entire, each video is about some different thing that he is called out on, some different case that he is trying to solve, and he will go step by step through the process that he goes through to solve this case. And he goes through every different kind of slide that is required under the microscope and all the different stainings, and shows you the end result of how he made the determination that this is marinum, Microbacterium marinum. And anyone in the fish hobby, this should be a name that strikes fear in your heart, that you begin to understand how dark. That's the only word that I can use that really describes it, that how dark parts of our hobby can be. And this is probably not a good subject for new fish keepers. New fish keepers do not want to know that there are diseases out there that will wipe out every fish that you have in your possession if you're not careful in making sure that you don't transfer these diseases from tank to tank. I basically had to euthanize all the fish in the tank and let that tank sit fallow for 15 years before I could use that tank again. It was devastating to me that I had run across something that I could neither cure nor recognize early, and that I could not solve, and that basically was a brick wall that I ran into. It cost me about $200 back in the 70s to get a university vet to tell me exactly what my fish had. And when the reporting came back and I heard the words Microbacterium marinum, they were completely alien to my experience. I had no idea what that was. And so I started doing my research into that disease. And the more I read, the more horrified I was, and the more concerned I was about my hobby. But I slowly began to wrap my head around what had happened. And as most of the fish keepers that are in this chat can tell you, we as fish keepers are going to kill fish. There is no way that we will not kill fish. Now, there's some people out there that have phenomenal records. They are actually savants at fish keeping, and they do an incredible job of keeping fish alive. Even when those fish probably shouldn't survive, they are skilled and lucky and endowed enough to keep those fish alive and to actually make them thrive. These are people like Dean. If you follow Dean Tweedale, you will see someone that is phenomenally good at keeping fish alive. His survival rate of fish throughout his fish keeping career, and I am sure early on he lost lots of fish, but his survival rate with the fish he keeps is incredible. So understand, as a new hobbyist, you are going to kill fish. But every time your fish die, if you are a true hobbyist, a true fish keeper, you are going to do everything you can to see to it that you do not lose fish in that same way again. That you are going to use that death as an opportunity for you to reinvigorate your your dedication to the hobby. I mean, you may see it as a reason to quit the hobby, sell off or kill all your fish, put your fish tanks in the garage and never look at them again, or sell them off to someone you know that wants them. But if you stay in the fish keeping hobby, and if you rededicate yourself after a disaster to try to use that disaster as an opportunity to advance your skill, as an opportunity to learn from your mistakes, then you will progress. Your fish will probably not die because of that same reason. And Fish Tropic brings up a great point. I read many, many years ago that the average lifespan of fish in the wild is less than 2 years. Even in their natural habitat, if you take the sum total of fish that are born, most of them die within 2 years, whether their lifespan is 2 years or whether their lifespan's 20 years. Most of the fish in the wild die within 2 years. So if you and your hobby fish keeping, get to the point where you can keep a fish alive for more than 2 years, or if the fish's normal lifespan is 2 years, and you can keep it alive for the 2 years, then you have reached an excellent stage in your hobby, in your fish keeping. Hey Candy, welcome to the stream, and thank you for lurking. That is a milestone in fish keeping, to reach the point where you can keep, if you go buy 15 fish, you can keep 10 of them alive for 2 years. You have reached a milestone in your hobby, in your advancement of your fish keeping, because you are suddenly keeping those fish alive longer than they would have survived in the wild. And that's better than keeping your fish alive. That's keeping your fish alive longer than they would have survived in the wild. So as a new fish keeper, just be aware that you are going to lose fish, that it's part of the hobby. Fish Tropic says, yeah, no kidding, Dwayne. Also, I think just like us, you're going to have good stock from fry and bad stock. Visible bad deformed fish can also be internal issues. What's your thought on that, Dwayne? Yeah. If your breeding stock is bad, if you buy from a non-quality source, you could very well get fish that come to you that are so riddled with parasites or have such bad genetics that they're not going to live 6 months. Nothing you're going to do is going to keep them alive. So that's something that fish keepers need to learn to recognize, and that's something that research can teach you, how to recognize bad genetics in a fish. You can go watch videos from some of the judges in many areas of this hobby. And I'm telling you, YouTube has tons of people that are judges in many areas of this hobby. I can list off several. Many of you that are in the trade, in the chat, know them. If you go watch Jean's videos on betas, she will explain to you through her talks on judging beta quality what represents bad beta quality. You can infer from her talks about what makes an excellent beta, a winning beta. You can infer what doesn't make an excellent beta, what problems betas have. um, Fish Tropic says, I think guppies can really play a part of life cycles. Guppies should be the #1 fish sold in the world, not goldfish.
I agree.
Fish Tropics, you heard my wife agree with you in the background there. While that is true, while I recognize that goldfish should probably not be the most popular sold fish, I think there's a lot of factors that go into goldfish being sold more than others. Many of these people that I am trying to reach, new hobbyists, take their kids into a pet store to buy dog food, and the kid falls in love with a goldfish out of one of the tanks and wants that goldfish, and oh mommy, please buy me that goldfish. And so the mother buys a goldfish bowl and a thing of food and a airstone treasure chest with a diver attached to it, and they bring that home and they try to make that work. The child loves looking at the goldfish and dumping half the food in when they feed it. And there are a lot more of those kinds of people out there that are not really part of the hobby, but who have become hobbyists through their children's wishes and desires. I'm okay, Michael. I'm okay, Michael. What I want to do is I want to take that one mother out of 10 that also falls in love with that goldfish, and suddenly, yeah, it's an expense thing too, suddenly wants to become a fish keeper and looks at other fish and wants to keep those fish as well. Those are the people that I'm trying to reach here with these videos. So you bought a fish tank is my trigger word for you're a new fish keeper and you need to learn this stuff. So that's what this whole series from me is about. Another thing, Fish Tropic, is that millions of goldfish are sold as feeder fish to larger cichlids and stuff like that. So Terry's Tropical Tank says my intro to the hobby was a Fair Price Comet in 1974. And yeah, that's awesome, Terry. That's awesome that that prize that you won at a fair in 1974 has led you to the place where you are today, decades and decades and decades later. And that's the person that I'm trying to reach, Terry. the person that you are representative of, and that all of us in this chat, and indeed on YouTube, Fish Fam, all of us are a product of something like that. Our parents kept fish and we loved those fish. A roommate moved out and left us a tank full of fish in college. And that's my personal experience. The guy moved out, left me with a tank full of fish, and it took me about 6 months to kill them. And I really fell in love with those little barbs in that tank before I managed to kill them. And then I wanted to know why I killed them and what I needed to do to not kill them. Fish tube, Joseph says, and he's right. Okay, guys, we've kind of gotten off the beaten path here about research, but I think we covered enough of the subject, and I think we broached several different areas where research is valuable. As my wife says, library research. Do you want to talk to them?
Well, just ask them if they have any interest in learning how to do experimental research.
My wife wants to know if you guys want to know how to do experimental research. She spent her whole life in this field, and it's something that she can teach you a lot about. If you show any, you can, if you're interested in hearing her do it, I'm sure that if you put notices in the and Fish Tropic says, of course. So I'm sure that there is many people out there that you want to talk about it right now, or you want to wait till another
We'll
time.
wait and do it on. I'll usurp one of your Saturday.
Okay, she says she'll take over one of my Saturdays and do it. She will teach you a great deal about that kind of research, whereas I'm more. Joseph says he needs to do experimental research with the microscope live. Well, Joseph,
That'd be great.
I
want to see that.
she says she wants to see that too. He's going to do it Monday evening.
Okay.
He's had this microscope for what, 6 months, Joseph? You need to have done more work with that microscope already. Then you'll get to the point where I got to. Hey, Joel, welcome to the stream, man. You're right in at the tail end, and I'm fixing to leave. One of the reasons why I keep moving my time up is because Mark Shrimp Tanks keeps moving his time up for his live stream. I've been doing a live stream at like 3:45 for almost a year, over a year. And he started doing a live stream on Saturday afternoon at 4. So I started moving my live stream up a little bit. I was coming on at 3:45, and he moved his to 3:30. So I'm moving my live stream slowly forward, trying to avoid Mark's live stream. I don't think he recognizes that I'm doing a live stream, or if he does, he doesn't care. I got on one of his live streams last week and tried to tell him, but I don't think it really got through to him that he's running over top of me, and I don't want to keep you guys from watching Mark Shrimp Tank's live stream. Mark is an excellent shrimp keeper. He has incredible information. His photography is phenomenal. I'm ultra jealous of Mark's photography. I would highly recommend that you go check his video out after mine, just to learn more about shrimp, even if you don't want to keep them, and to learn about the ways that he has figured out how to keep his tanks. All right, guys, we're at the hour mark. I'm going to sign off here. Fish Tropics says at this point we are consumers and front line of middle class keepers. We need to make more info available to help the fish world. I couldn't say that point more clearly, Fish Tropics. This is exactly what I'm trying to do. The whole time I've been doing live streams, this is what I've wanted to do, and I intend to keep doing it as much as I can or until I see that it's no longer valuable. All right, guys, have a good rest of your weekend. Have a good week. Good luck with your fish. Thank you for spending some of your time listening to this old man rant and rave about keeping tropical fish. Good luck, guys.